Hello and welcome to this video. This is just a quick video going over some of the core points in PowerPoint to help you get started. We'll be covering how to create different things in PowerPoint, how to add images on, how to do video recordings, and then some more advanced stuff just to give you a nice overview. Now, if you are a Staffordshire University student, we also have a SharePoint which we've collated a lot of different videos that cover more advanced things as well, so you can refer to those outside of this video. As you can see along the video player, we have chaptered all of the important bits of this video, so you can skip through this if you know something, or we'll refer back to this later on down the line so you can see different parts of the video. So let's get started. When you first launch PowerPoint, you'll be greeted to this home page, which allows you to create a new PowerPoint based on a design, but also open other PowerPoints that you may or may not have created in the past. You could also see any shared PowerPoints on here as well. So, you can choose a design, and you can also see more themes as well. So if we select this More Themes tab, you'll be able to see all the different themes that you have access to or can download from the Microsoft page. However, for this, we're going to use a blank presentation just because it allows you to have a lot more creative freedom with what you want to add on. So selecting this blank presentation here, you will see we have the PowerPoint page that opens up. You can click to add a title, click to add a subtitle. So, we'll run through some of the core things to start with. First of all, you can see we do have this title page, and as you want to add more slides as you go along, just on the left you'll see there is a new slide tab. From here you'll be able to select this and it will just create your new slides. On the left we have all of the slides that load up here that we're working on, and then the main view window appears and it takes up the majority of the screen. As you can see right now I have 3 slides because I hit the new slide button twice. I'm going to select these by simply left clicking and pressing delete, and I'll do the same again, so we're just back to the title screen. If you're wanting to add different types of slides, this depends on the template you have, but you'll simply select just underneath new slide, you'll see there's a little arrow. If you select this, there are different types of slides that you can add depending on what you require. So if I selected the comparison view, as you can see, we do have a different slide that pops up with a title and then 2 subtitles underneath with a description box for each of those. We'll get into what the boxes mean in a minute, but if you're ever wanting to change your design midway through a PowerPoint creation or at the start, right at the top you'll see we have different words that relate to different ribbons in PowerPoint. And if we go to design, you can see all of the themes that we had right at the start of the PowerPoint on the home screen we have here. So we can simply select one of these and it will give us a different PowerPoint template. So if I was to select this wooden one, for example, and then I return back to my home tab, you will see if I use this drop down now, all of these then for the new slides will then change to the slide in the template. So if I select the quote with caption, as you can see, I get a new slide based on that template. Again, I don't like these. I'm going to delete them. I will then return back to design and then simply head back to my Office general theme, which is the default for PowerPoint. Additionally, while we're in this design tab, while we're here, you'll also see a few other things. So if you're wanting to make your own template, you can do that. First things first, you will see there are variants of PowerPoints as well. So not only does this reflect on the default, this will reflect in the templates. You can select certain colored themes as well, so this will change. If we go back to this one, for example, as you can see for the variants, it does change significantly what that core template looks like based on a different color. Additionally, I can also see the slide size, so I can make these wider or smaller. Generally now, as you can see, we have 2 to pick from: standard 4:3 or widescreen 16:9. This just relates to the size of your monitor. Generally, most monitors are rectangular, so you'll want to use the 16:9. However, if you have a squarer monitor or quite small size one, a 4:3 is there for you to use. However, it's probably recommended you stay to 16:9. Additionally, just to the right of that, you'll see format background. And what this allows me to do is allows me to add colors in. So if I don't want this white background, what I can do here is I can select the fill type. So we have solid fill, so that will be a solid color. Gradient fill, which is changing between 2 colors. I can add a picture, I can add a pattern, or I can hide the background completely. I will keep this as white, but I will just show you can change the color, which will then influence most of the rest of the PowerPoint. So if we change to this shade of orange, for example, as you can see, that updates the PowerPoint, so I'm not having to add anything on. I can also apply this to all, so if I select that now, every time I make a new slide, that shade of orange will be used as a background, or I can reset the background back to the normal white. Additionally, you might have seen I might have pressed a cross through this already, which is the designer. Now the designer is important, and it allows PowerPoint to AI generate based on a few different templates that it has loaded up to move your content around and basically place it in a way that looks really nice and slick, if you're not using a template, that is. I love the designer. Right now I've got nothing on there for it to transfer over, so I'm going to leave this for now, but we'll come back to this once we've built out a PowerPoint. So I'm going to close that down, and we're just back to the normal PowerPoint here. I'm going to move back to the home ribbon just so we can show a few things. Now we are on a title screen and I can add new slides. However, let's just make a title to start. So I'm going to press in the title box. I'm going to type in a title, how to create a PowerPoint. We have our title. You can now press in the subtitle, add a different box by Rowan Walker. Now, as you can see, I do have my red squiggle, which indicates there might be a mistake in spelling or grammar. For this case, it's just because I didn't capitalize PowerPoint, and right clicking and selecting the option from there allows me to then change to the appropriate text. That is a little bit better. So cool, I have a title, I have a subtitle. What if I want to make a new box because I want to have a bit more? Maybe it's a subtitle, it's more than just my name. Well, good thing you asked that question. If you navigate to the top of the Home tab again, you will see we have different boxes within the ribbon that indicates the different things in PowerPoint that you can do. I'll go across the sort of left to right. So we had a look briefly at the slides, but essentially this allows me sort of to control the layout of my PowerPoint and what I want to add next. So you've seen the new slides. The reuse slides is if I want to use a PowerPoint slide later on in the PowerPoint, maybe I'm referring back to it, I can just press this button, it will reuse. There is also a different shortcut key, which we'll get into a bit later on. You'll also be able to change the layout of the current slide. So maybe this doesn't need to be the title page, and I want to make it into title or content or so on and so forth. I select one of those and it will readjust the page. I can also reset the position and size and the formatting of the slide to the default. So maybe I've moved my title across, moved my name down, and I don't like that. I liked what I had before. I actually do kind of like this a little bit better, but we'll just select that reset and it will just bring it all back together. And the last is section, which allows me to organize my sections, which can be a very important and impactful thing depending on how you're presenting and if you're uploading this somewhere else for someone else to see. What this does is it's nothing visible to the participants or viewers of your PowerPoint, but it allows you to easily control what's visible for you when you're looking at something. So if I select section and add a section, you'll see we get this rename section icon. I'm going to call this introduction. And what this does is it starts to enable me to sort of segment my PowerPoint slides into different chunks depending on the topic I'm talking about. So this could be really powerful if I'm going to have my introduction. So I'd add, the title, I'd add maybe who I am, and then maybe some of the session outlines in here. I can then add an additional section, which is then the topic itself. And then I might have some activities which then I can put in a different section. And why this has no major impact to the person you're delivering to, if you then later share these slides out, it does give a little bit more context of where everything sits, sort of like the YouTube chapters. And it can just be a really helpful way just to very quickly navigate through that information and content then. It also keeps it nice and organized for you so you know what's coming up. So you can see we do have a section here. And if I press this little arrow, it will collapse that. It's not gone, it's simply just hidden for the moment. I can press that and bring that back. If I was to add a new section then, so I can add a new section, you can see that pops under there. I can give this a new title, so I'll call this topic. I'll rename that, and now anything that I place, so all I've done there is left click underneath that section. If I create a new slide, it will sit in there now, and it gives me the option just to control that a little bit more. Moving on to the next box then, we have font. Now anytime you see one of these add text icons or click to add title, what I'll be able to do is simply press in that box, select my font, and then from here we've got different options that will edit the text. So the first box is allowing me to change the font, so I can have all of these different types of fonts. Then I've got the size of the font, so I can make it small or I can make it big. And with this, it is important to say you can type in the box. So even if I think mine's limited to 96, if I want to go bigger to 96, let's say 200, I can press in that box and then type in 200, which will then change that to a bigger font. If you've made a mistake or you want to undo something, just in the top left above the slide, you'll see this little arrow here, which just allows me to undo and revert back to my previous change. And I can also redo that if I did like that from the first time as well. If we go back to the font then, you'll also see we have a few different buttons. So if I select all that font again, just to the right of that, there is a incremental increase or decrease in font type as well, so you don't have to use this box. If you have changed up the font and the size and you go, you know what, I liked what there was previously in the template I'm using, the little A in eraser just reverts that back to the default. We also have the styles of font, so this was referring to if you want bold text, italic text, underline text, and also if you want text shadow, which just adds a slight shadow underneath all of the letters or numbers that you're using. You can also use strike through, so you can have a line through words, and you can also control the distance between the letters as well. So maybe you want more space in between the letters, maybe you want it very tight, and then you can also change the way that your words are presented in a sentence. So you can capitalize each word, you can have lowercase, uppercase, or just have a normal sentence case like what I'm doing here. And then the last two in this box is a highlighter, so you can highlight different words, although it is very bright. And then finally, you can change the font in here. So if I select my A with the red line, by default for me, I can come in, change that to a different color. So we'll change that to the same shade of orange we used earlier. As you can see, that's changed now. I can select that and then come back in, change that to whatever color I want. Typically, if you are creating something and you're thinking about accessibility in mind, which we'll reference later on, white and black are generally the only font you want to use unless you're using it to highlight a certain word. I wouldn't use it as the main body of text. Additionally, you might also see there is an eyedropper and more colors. What the eyedropper does is it allows me to find a color that I have on my monitor and then change the font to that color. So if I use the eyedropper here, you'll see we have a box that's represented different colors. So if I go over sort of this black here, it will turn to black then, and I can select that and all font will then change to that, or the font I've got selected will change to that. Additionally, if I want more colors out of these themed colors, bearing in mind all of these theme colors fit into an accessibility category, so they're not going to be too bright, they're not going to be too dark. If I go into more, here I can choose an amazing new shade of purple that has never been seen by mankind before. However, it might not be accessible friendly, so that is something just to be aware about. However, I can do that, and if you do find a shade that you quite like to use, you can simply move your mouse and select a color from here, and all of this information at the bottom is just retaining to the number that relates to, because essentially color relates to a hex code. So if you want to come back and use this in the future, you can just copy and paste that hex in, or if you do have a really good memory, you can just copy the red, green and blue hue in, which will then update and show you that color again. I like this purple. I don't really, but let's say we do. I simply hit OK, and as you can see, my text changes to that and I can select that text again and then clear that out. You don't have to select text. If I wanted to start typing, but I don't want it in black, I want it in blue instead, I can just come under here and type in. If I can type, there we go. So I've done hello, hi world, and as you can see, that's just done that in blue there. To the right of that, then we have paragraphs, which more relates to if you've got a long line of text. So I will just copy a different PowerPoint that I have been working on very quickly across. So what I've done here is I've got some text from a different PowerPoint. I'm going to come into my second slide. So I made a new slide and I'm going to copy and paste that over. So I can right click, which gives me a long list of things I can do. However, the most important section really will be these first three here. So I've copied something over and I'm going to go to my paste option, copy just the text, and as you can see that paste in there. And in paragraphs, what I can do is it gives me different options to then change for my text. The most important sections then, first of all, will be if you want to bullet point something. So as you can see, if I press this, it gives me a bullet point. If I use the drop down, it gives me different styles of bullet points I can use too. I can also number this as well. So instead of bullet points, I want to do numbers. I can select this and it will give me numbers. I can also indent something. So maybe I want the bullet point itself to be more to the right. I can press this and it will indent, indent, indent again. And then I can also change the position of the text too. So maybe I don't want this left to right centered. Maybe I want this right to left centered. Maybe I want this bang in the middle. Or maybe I just want it to appear where it's equal. I'm going to keep it left to right. And as you can see, there are some other options as well. You can change the line spacing. You can also change if you want it split into different columns. So as I write more out, it will split into different columns. And it also has some additional information here that I can update too. However, primarily it's mainly used for the bullet points, the numbers, and then the position of the text. Now, before we move on to drawing, let's say on this title screen, I do want to have an additional text box up here, or maybe I want to have a shape or something. This is where the drawing tab comes in. So primarily in here, as it would recommend, you can draw things. I can scroll down here, and as you can see, I've got different shapes. Primarily, the main one you'll want to use is this one here with an A, which is just a text box. So I'll select this, left click, drag, and I can make that as big or small as I want, and it simply just creates me a text box. So I can just type in text, and then I can change the font to that. I can add shapes, however, so let's say I want, well, let's scroll down and find something cool. Let's add this cube, for example. I can just press and drag, and as you can see, that pops up there, and I can add a nice fancy cube. When I've placed that, you might have noticed at the top it's changed my ribbon to shape format. So this is all of the settings for the different options I've got for the shape. So if I draw the circle, it would do the same. If I draw a triangle, it would also pop up. So first things first, I can draw new shapes. I can also change the color to the default colors that Office has picked out of this box as well. So you can see you've got lots of different things to choose from. So maybe I want it transparent. Maybe I want a different shade. And just like the text, we can change all these colors too. So shape fill changes the color of inside the shape. So as you can see here, we've got all these different colors we can use. And we can also use eyedropper just like we did earlier. We can use different colors, gradient texture, and all of that stuff as well. The shape outline, so if I change this to transparent, for example, shape outline simply allows me to change, whoops, I drew a different shape. We go back to shape format. As you can see here, all of the lines are currently blue. If I wanted to change the color of that, I can just select that from here as well. So now it's purple. Back into shape format, I'm going to make that a full color again. And then there's also shape effects too. So you can add reflections or glows. In my opinion, some of them look a bit tacky, but you might find something that you really like or works out well for you. As part of shape format, as you build stuff into it, it might be very different. So you can come in and add, if you were adding text in here, so So if you were adding text in here, you can select the text, and then you can select one of these shape formats as well. That is created by Office, but you can come in and, as you can see, you've got all of the things they use to your fullest too, so you can come in and change all of that too. Now, over here, they kind of are important things, but they're more advanced features. First one is alt text, which is really important, as it gives, if you upload an image, which we'll get into in a moment, it allows you to type in a description of that image. So if it doesn't load, or if a user is visually impaired, they're able to understand what's on the screen without being able to see it, which is amazing. So we'll get into that in a minute. Bring forward, bring back, or the selection pane. And really the rest of these relates to where the image is on screen. Now we've not got much on here, but let's add another cube, for example. So I'll add a cube here, and as you can see, this cube now overlaps this cube, but I don't like that. I want this cube to sit behind this cube. So how will we do that? Well, what you would do is select one of the objects. So I've left clicked on this orange rectangle here, and I can bring forward or send backwards. So in this case, I want to bring this forward, so I'd simply select bring forward. As you can see, it simply moves that cube. Now this works for images too, so you might have lots of different images on the screen, but you only want one, or you want one in a certain place, so you simply select shape format, bring forward or send back from there as well. And the other ones sort of rotate. You can rotate and flip and things like that, or you can align to different sections. And also, if you are very picky, you can come in and change how big you want things. So if I want these bang on 2.5 centimeters and 5 centimeters, I can just change that simply by doing that. So that's the drawing tab. There's lots of little things you can do in there. Finally, you do have these last few sections. However, they're not too relevant. The only one that is massively relevant in this section is the designer, which we'll get into when we've put more things on. So that is the main ribbon. You'll primarily work from the home ribbon just because it's got all of your text information on there as well. However, if you did select something and you were to hover over or right click, you also get the main bits from that home ribbon that appears in here as well. So as you can see, we've got all of the text boxes here. You can also copy and paste things as well. The next ribbon allows you to create different things. So if you wanted to go more in depth and add different shapes in, or images and things like that, you can do that from here. So you will see we've got the slide tab back in, because technically you're inserting a new slide. But you can also add tables. So if you wanted to add, well, let's create a new slide. So we'll add a new slide here. And I wanted to create a table very quickly. Simply select table and drag and drop. And I can add that in if I wanted to show some data. Pictures, you can. I wouldn't recommend doing this, but you can search your device through this and it will give you your file format, and you can find your folders and drop files in. But you can also use this for stock images as well. So if I wanted to see what Microsoft has generated, as you can see, I've got images to choose from, and let's look at flowers, for example. I can type flowers in, and these are all licensed from Microsoft, so you can use these. As you can see at the bottom, I am a Microsoft subscriber and have access to the full content. So I like this one. I'd simply select this image here, select insert, and that then adds the image in. And you've got lots of different things. So maybe you want to take a screenshot of something, and you can select that and choose the window that you want to screenshot from. You have photo albums, which allows you to create a nice album of photos, as it would suggest. The camera, which we'll get into later, don't worry about that for now. Then you've also got this illustrations tab. So from here, just like we added the shapes in, as you can see, we've got a long list of shapes. But additionally in this section, you can add things like charts. So if you wanted your bar charts or pie diagrams and things like that, you can throw all of those in from here. And then there's also another cool one, which are 3D models, which is a selection of 3D models that you can add and then kind of animate them for your PowerPoint, which can be a very cool and visual thing to do, which I'll show you later too. If we press this, you can insert your own if you've made 3D models before on things like Blender, but If you've not, Microsoft do own a couple that you can use. As you can see, there is a library that opens up. I like space, so we'll add this little astronaut. This one does have an animation. As you can see, there's just a little man just appearing there. We'll add that astronaut in. 3D models are a bigger file, which means they can take a little while longer to load. So just be patient, let that bar fill up. And once that's added in, as you can see, the astronaut appears on my screen. And I have a few options. I can move him just like that. So I press in the middle, left click, and then drag my mouse around. And I can make him bigger as well. There we go. I'm going to delete him because I don't need him right now. And there are additional things that you can drop in this tab as well. So you can add a Microsoft form, for example. Comments you would use if you're sending this to someone else, and they can add a comment on top saying this doesn't make sense and things like that. You can add headers and footers and all this different types of stuff. The one that's probably more important is probably just looking at the media tab here, which links into the review ribbon. So you can just very quickly add in a video or add some audio or record some audio from here as well. So all important things. The drawing, very simple tab. If you wanted to draw, you can simply draw. So I'll do that here. You can see my handwriting's not too good on a mouse. It's not too good with a pencil either or a pen, but here we go. So it just gives you very quick things for things. If you want to scribble, you probably wouldn't use this unless you're doing something very artsy on a PowerPoint itself. So it's probably best to ignore this tab. Design we've been through, so we'll skip over that. Transitions, I don't know if anyone's seen any really corny transitions. This is where they come from. So if I wanted to add curtains, for example, so it gives you a nice preview of what this will look like and how this is displayed. Typically, you would only ever want to use none because most of them look very bad and very 90s. However, the Morph can be a very powerful and slick and very professional way to add very fancy transitions. So if you've got to use this, I would say experiment, see what you like. However, my recommendation would be none or Morph. And I use Morph quite a bit because I like my fancy animations, but it takes a little bit longer to set up. You'll also be able to see just in the top right, you can change all of these as well. So if I've got my Morph on, as you can see, it takes 2 seconds to transition that slide, which is, I need that to be faster or slower. I can just come in and then change that time from here. And then if I have Morph on every slide, I can apply that to all slides. So I want this to be 1 second long and then apply to all. That Morph then only takes a second to do. And then you've also got an additional bit, so you can just advance the slide. I typically would say to leave this on mouse click unless you're timing yourself and you can get it down to a T. However, generally, you might pace your words differently when you're presenting on the day and things like that, so it's always better to have that more control. The next window is animation. So if we go back to our starting slide where we actually have some images, if I select on one of these boxes or maybe a text box, you'll see these animations get colorful. And this simply allows me to, as it would suggest, give an animation to something, so how it comes in on the screen. So imagine the transition we just did. If I press my mouse button or use my arrow key on the keyboard, it will transition that slide. If I add an animation, it will play the animation before transitioning. So what I mean by this is, if we add an appear, for example, it should give me it should show me what it does. So if we use fade there, as you can see, it fades in. Fly-in's a better example. We use fly in. So there's lots of different examples and different things you can do here. So if we use the drop down, you can see you've got all these different things. You can even set your own paths for different animations as well. I'm going to ignore this and just use fly in. So fly in flies it in. Let's add a different one. We'll add a bounce to this one. And there are two animations that are loaded, and as you can see, what's selected here is, because I loaded that animation first, it's given it a 1, so this will load first, this will load second, and I can come in and change those as well. However, I've got the effect options just to the right of the animations. If I don't like how this flies in, I can change the direction this comes from. So I don't want it to come up from the bottom because it doesn't make much sense if it's sitting near the top. So let's have it come from the top so it comes straight down. And that was very easy to do. Another important bit about animation, if you are adding a lot of it in, is you can see animation panes. So this will show you the order of animations. So as you can see, we've got 1, 2, and I can just move these up and down. So maybe I want this orange cube to come in first, and I simply drag it and move it around so I can see the order of things, how they will load. Just like the transitions, we can set timers and things like that onto there too. So you can come in and say, well, these animations, I don't want to do them on click. I want them to be automatic. I want them to be fancy. So you can do, you know, it's got to play 2 seconds. It's got to delayed by this. So when I start the PowerPoint, it will play this animation and things like that. So you control all that time from here. And when you've done that, when you're in the viewer itself, it might not look like it's done anything, because you can see we've got the whole PowerPoint together on here. However, I'm going to go down to the bottom, and particularly in the bottom right, you'll see different modes of PowerPoint, sorry. And if we select this right one, it does do the slideshow, which is what you will be presenting. So remember this one, and you select that. And as you can see, the cubes have gone. On the right window, I've got 2 monitors. On my right, I can see presentation mode. So I can see what's queued up next. However, if you're using one, you'll just get your PowerPoint. If I want to see my animations now, I simply left click or use my right arrow key. So you can see the animations pop up. I press again, the second animation plays. And because that's all of the animations I've got, I know the next one, when I press it, will then load up a slide. And then I pressed escape to close that. So that's your animation window. Now that is a very powerful tool. It can get very cheesy and very boring quick. So make sure you use it wisely, I would say. But you can do some cool things with that. But it can take a lot of time, especially if you're doing a lot. The more animations you add, the more complex it gets, which means the more time you've got to spend investing to make it look cool. So just bear that in mind. The next one is slideshow. So where I said in the bottom right it will present, you can also present up at the top here. You can do things like rehearsals or recording as well from here. Primarily, I only ever use the bottom right. However, say if you close this PowerPoint because you've got something that you want to show on a different window, so maybe I've got something loaded up on Google, you can always just come back, press on the slide you want to show from, and then press show current slide, which can be a very powerful thing as well. Additionally, there's also the record, which we'll get into once we've added some more things to a PowerPoint as well. But this is a very powerful tool if you are recording a PowerPoint and sending it off, because it comes with its own recording system. So you can come in, record a big thing, and there you go. So now we've gone through all the tabs, let's start creating something that looks cool. So what I've got, I'm going to cheat a bit. I've made a PowerPoint earlier, but I will walk through all of the steps of everything that I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these slides for now, and we're going to delete all of the objects. So what I'm doing here is I'm simply going to press on objects, press delete. I'm going to select that text and remove that with backspace, delete this text box, and there we go. Now I could have started a new PowerPoint, so if I press file and then select new or select this blank PowerPoint, it would have opened me a new one. But we started with this one, we might as well see it through. So what are we going to talk about? Well, anyone who saw the previous slide, you might have seen that I like photography. So we're going to do a very quick photography PowerPoint. So start with your title. So, you know, I've got the title selected in here. So by default, I'm going to type in my title. Or what I'm going to do is going to copy and paste it over. And as you can see here, my title appears. Now I don't like how that sits. I would like it either in one long string of text, or I can reduce the text down. So reduce the text down, that's how it will appear. However, I like it at 60, it's very visible. So we'll move this text box over so you can see these are anchor points. It allows me to make things bigger or smaller. So I'm just going to move my anchor points just to see if we can get that aligned a little bit better, which it has not. So what we do need to do then is reduce the text down, one click, and there we go. We've got to then reduce the anchor point just a little bit then. And as you can see, that pops up on there. And now I want some very nice photo. This looks a bit boring. I don't want just plain text. So I've got a photo, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it across. So what you can do, if you have an image that is saved, is you can open your file browser up and save an image across. So what I'm going to do here is I have my file browser, so I'll drag that across now. So here you go. You can see I've got a few things loaded in here. What I'm going to do is select this image, drag that across. I can also go insert and add image, but I like dragging and dropping stuff. And as you can see, that places on there like that. Now I can, first thing to note, alt text, person taking a picture of a lake. Please change this so people who can't see the image can understand what's being presented on the screen. And I can drag that, place that wherever I want. So maybe I want that like that, and I'll place it like that. And there you go, I've got an image on the screen. But that's covered my text, so I want to send that to the back. So now I've selected the image. As you can see, I get different options for the image, some that we didn't cover earlier. So you can do corrections, color, transparency, which, you know, all have their own thing. However, you do have the arrange, so I can send this to the back again. And there you go, and then I can move the text down, for example, just like that. And that's a very, very quick way to then create that. Now, it actually kind of looks okay. However, we're going to now talk about Designer. So Designer it's like a very dumb AI. It looks at what you've got on the screen, compares it against some templates that has been built or people have built from before, and suggests things that will look a little bit more visually appealing. So you can see on the right we've got different images, and it's very simple. I can just select one that I like and it will just load that. To be honest, this one here I think looks good. I can press that, it loads up. But let's say I didn't like it, I can come down and I can either Control Z or undo to undo that idea, or I can select a different idea as well. At the bottom I can also see more designs, so if I press this it will generate me more designs, so I can keep going down this list and finding new ideas of things that I like. So there we go. That's Designer. Just find one you like and select. I think it looks very cool, I think it looks very slick. You want to try and keep to one consistent style, so you know you don't want to have this one and then move to a PowerPoint that has something like this or something like this. You want to keep it fairly consistent. Now you can change it up through the design, but like I said, consistency is key. So there's the introduction, right? So we have the welcome slide. Let's get into the topic. So as you knew earlier, we did make a selection. Sorry. So I'll press in the section, and that orange line pops up. So this is where the next slide is going to place. I can use the slide then, and then select a slide or create a new slide, which will just create a title and content. So we'll do that now. As you can see, this pops up. And now we're going to think about what I actually want to talk about. And what we've got here, or what I'm going to do, is I've got a slide that just showcases some of the photographer's work at hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste his name in. I'm then going to copy and paste some images over. So I'm going to Control C, Control C, Control V. And as you can see, we've got those two images that appear on the screen then. My designer's popped up instantly and is choosing some really cool designs that I'd like. Let's see if they've got any more. How that one looks good, and it stays consistent with what was the first one because we keep the same gradient line at the bottom. And as you can see, we've got those images loaded up now. So there we go. But let's say in my PowerPoint itself, when I'm delivering this to someone, I want to talk about a certain images, so either the left or the right one. So let's think about adding animation. Now, unfortunately, we will have to create a duplicate of the slide just so we can make one bigger. But let's say I just want one image to appear on the screen. I want to make it very smooth in motion and it looks cool. What we're going to do is we're going to select this slide from here and we're going to right click and scroll down, and here you'll see we've got some different options for the actual slides themselves. So if I press duplicate slide, it will create a copy of this slide, which is what I said I wanted. I just want one of these images to get bigger. And from here, we'll choose the image we want to get bigger. So I love the umbrella. If anyone has seen me in Wong's photography, he does a lot of nighttime things and a lot of things in the rain. I love umbrellas in big neon lights, so that's what I'm going to talk about. What I'm going to do is select this image and think about your end result. How do you want this to appear? Now for me, I want it just to take over the entire screen. So I'll pop this in a corner. I'm going to select an anchor point and then drag down to try and fill as much of the screen as I can. As you can see, it's not a perfect rectangle, so I'll move this across just a little bit. Maybe I'll stretch the image out, which I don't like doing because you lose some of the quality, but to be honest, it doesn't look that bad. So I'll move the anchor points, and there we go. Now, as you can see, we've still got this line at the bottom, and maybe I just want to talk about the art itself, and I don't want that line there, so what do? Picture format, send forward, and there we go. Now, if we go into our presenter mode, we have this slide, and it transitions. Well, you're thinking, well, that was not a smooth transition. Well, remember the morph we were talking about earlier? That's where this comes into play. So a really cool thing is, if you have objects that you want to transition between to make bigger or smaller, you can do that from here. So what you want to do is on the slide, that's going to have the transition, so the animation. I'm going to press transition, press morph, and as you can see, it plays that, so it shows me how that will look. So you can see that's done that there. And if I go into this slide now, I can just go, whoop, there's the image on the screen. And this works the same if we want to do the other image. So what I'd recommend doing this time is duplicating the first one again, because remember, this is the reference panel. This is where everything comes from initially. We're going to come, right click, duplicate that, or Control D for those who like their shortcuts. We'll move this slide down now, so it's underneath the first one. And then we'll do the opposite again. So this time we're going to talk about this image. We're going to move it into another corner. We're going to make it bigger. Slide it across. Yet again, I will say, think about the image quality. Because I've made it bigger and I've also distorted it and it's not kept uniform, it has created a little bit of... the quality's been reduced. So just be aware of that when you do stuff. Maybe instead of blowing it up this big, maybe I'll blow it up just a little bit because it keeps a lot more of the quality, but for the example I will make it as big as I can. Yet again, the image is not as far forward as it needs to be, so we'll bring it forward. And there we go. Remember, we want that transition there, so we'll add a morph in again. And as you can see, the images swap out. And there we go. So that's that one done. So we've added a quick transition. Now, one thing I will say is people don't like reading text off the screen. If you're going to stand there and read it, you know, either why is the text on the screen or why are you reading it out? So one thing that's really cool, and I do this, I'm a very visual person, so I've got a lot of images on the screen, is just underneath you'll see we have a notes box here, which only you will see as the presenter. If you don't see this box here, just on the bottom again, you will see this where it says notes. You can press this and open. And you can type in notes here. If you hover your mouse over it, it changes to these arrows and you can drag up or drag down to make that note box bigger so you can add things in. I have something I made earlier, so I'm going to copy and paste that in and have that note there. So I don't have anything on my slide, but if I've got two monitors or I'm presenting and I can see the screen that it's being ran on, it will present these notes to me so I've got a quick reminder of what I need to say. Cool. But let's say now I want to have another fancy slide like this, but I want different images on. Okay. The way I would recommend doing this is you can either make a new slide. In my case, I'm going to copy the slide, delete the images off them. So I'm going to duplicate my slide, bring it down, select the images and delete. Because I like how the PowerPoint looks already. I like this bar at the bottom. I can come in and change my notes as well. In fact, let's see. There we go. I do have some new notes, so I'll copy and paste these in. And from here, I'm simply going to copy and paste these images in that I've got from here. Oops, it's copied twice. And my last one. There we go. I can come in and move all these text boxes around. I can move the images around. As you can see, whenever I move an image, I do get alignment. So if I want things to perfectly align or be level, if I move something, I'll get boxes that indicate that as well. So there we go. I've also got here different formats that I can choose from. Let's see, this one looks really, well, it would have looked cool if it didn't squash the image. Maybe something like that. There we go. That looks cool. I like that. Very quickly added those images on from there. I can add a morph in if I want, but all that will do is simply fade and move my text down. So if you're thinking, cool, how do I not do that? How do I add something fancier? Well, good thing you asked. Let's move away from the photography. So I'm going to press here, press home, create a new section. Add section. I'm going to call this animation. So let's think about how we can get creative. Now, to be honest, I think what I've done is very slick. However, you might be looking for something a little bit more. So what we'll do here is let's create places we would like to go. So maybe in this presentation, I'm talking, well, Liam Wong does his photography in Tokyo. I want to do mine in Australia or something like that. But let's have something that looks fancy, that is a little bit cooler, right? So what we'll do here, we'll go, where do I want to take photos? So we've added a title in. Let's add something fancy in. What I'll do here is, first of all, if you're wanting to add a cool design, choose your design now before you start adding animations on. Let's say I like this one. I don't like that image it's presented me, so I'm going to delete that off. But let's start with thinking about what I want to show. I want to show a globe. I want that globe to move to Australia. We'll place a flag in there, and then we'll add a speech bubble. Okay, very easy things to do. We'll go to our Insert tab. We'll go to 3D Models, Stock 3D Images. From here, you can peruse to your heart's content. I'm going to type in Earth because I know there is an Earth in here. Press Enter. Find one I like. This one here is a good looking Earth. We're going to insert that from there. Give it a second to load. And there we go. Now I want to talk about this and I want it to look very fancy. So I'm going to go, first of all, make this really small. And from here, we're going to duplicate this because we've got different, think about final positions you want things to sit in. So the final position for this slide, I want it to start small. So that's the final position. We've got to duplicate that so it's in the same place. And then we're going to move that to where we want that to sit in here. Make it as big or as small as you want. Quick tip if you was scaling something with a corner, if you press shift, it will keep it uniform. So it means all of these sides will remain the same. It won't get distorted out. So it keeps all the same size. So let's make this planet, let's make Earth a little bit bigger. Now what I'll do is I'll move, and we're going to start in the UK. So I'm going to put that at a little bit of a tilt. And then what we'll do is go back to my favorite thing, Morph. So what that will do is it will move the Earth and then rotate. So Morph is a very powerful thing. Now what I want a flag to pop down to say where I'm from. So what we'll do, we'll go back to Insert. Now you can add a 2D flag, but there are 3D ones as well. So we'll go 3D Models again. We'll type in flag, press Enter. We'll use a nice blue flag to represent Earth, or sorry, the UK. As you can see, that places on. We can scale down. We can rotate. So I'm going to use my arrow key, so when I've got something selected, just for very precise inputs here. So there we go. Maybe I want the Earth actually to be a little bit more rotated, just so the flag stands out a little bit more. There we go. And what I'm going to do here is, if you think about a flag of well, not traditionally, but back in the day, they used the plank flag straight down into the floor like a pin. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to select my flag. I'm going to select animation. And what we're going to do, we're going to have it maybe fly in. but it looks a bit silly coming from the bottom because the flag is more towards the top third. So we'll go effect, straight down, and that's got to pin straight down. So what will happen is my morph will play, the earth will rotate and move, then I press again and the flag comes down and lands in the UK. So let's have a quick look about watch at that. So as you can see, this is the start slide. I've got my morph that comes in, press again, flag comes down, and we do that from there. So that's cool. But now we wanted to move to Australia, so let's do that next. So I like the orb where it is. There's not really much hard work to do. So I'll select the slide. I'm going to Control D or right click duplicate slide. I'm going to delete this flag and simply move the earth again. So select in the middle of the earth, move over to Australia. As you can see, there's Australia. Put it in a little bit of a different place. So we'll put it down here this time. And we're going to add another flag. So we'll go Insert, 3D Model again, type in flag. This time we'll use the checkered flag to indicate that's where we want to finish. So I'm going to select that. Flag pops up, and just like last time, we're going to first move the flag into the position we want. So we're going to put it upside down. Actually, I don't like it upside down. It looks a bit weird. So we'll move that back. That a bit smaller, rotate that a little bit. Now the rotation is a little bit finicky. There we go. We've added that flag in yet again. I'm going to want that to fly in, so we're going to work out where we want that. Look, crap coming from the bottom. Let's see, we're going to have it come from the top right this time. Looks a bit better. We'll just try from the top to see how that looks. I think from the top right looks a little bit better just because that's the direction of the flag. I think it comes in a bit too fast, so we'll make that a bit slower. So we'll play that again. Did not do it, so we'll play that again. And there we go. Check that your transition's still on morph. We'll go here. And now we'll look. So we have a morph. We'll have an animation. The morph will play again. We'll have a different animation. And there we go. Now what I want to do is I want to make the earth small. I want to have a text bubble come out with some information on. Very easy to do again. So what we'll do is we'll duplicate the slide. We'll move the flag. We will decrease the earth size. Pop that back over here. Maybe move the earth a little bit just to add some more animation. We'll go back to Insert. Through, we will then go Shapes. And then in here, there should be a speech bubble. There it is, right at the bottom. Call out. So we'll select a speech bubble. Press and drag. There we go. Now I don't like where that arrow sits. I also don't like the colour. Don't like the colour more, so we'll change the colour first. What I'll do is I'll add this blue. That'll be fine for now, but as you can see, it did place the arrow down in the wrong place. So if I select the yellow, I can drag that to an area I'd like. So, you know, I want that coming from Australia, so I can do that. Make this a little bit bigger. Move the yellow, so it's like a speech bubble coming out. And then I can add some images in. So I'm going to copy and paste some images here. And those are massive, so let's scale those down a little bit. There we go. So we've got two nice images. And now that I look at it, I realise the colour is wrong again. So we'll go Shape Format. Let's just go for a nice transparent box. So instead of using these here, which you can do, let's do this manually. So Fill Shape. We'll make this no fill, and shape outline. Let's make it maybe a dark orange. There we go. Got that on there. Remember to animate everything. So one thing to mention is you can group objects together. So if you want them all to appear at the same time, you don't have to keep pressing through everything. If you select one item, so I select the kangaroo, hold Control on your keyboard and left click on the objects you want to group. You can then right click and then group, or press Control G, and this will then lock that to one thing. So if I make this bigger or smaller, as you can see, it groups them all together and makes them all uniform. But it also works for animations, so I want this to fade in, just like that. And there we go. That's how you make a very quick animation. So as you can see, we've done some various different objects here. So we'll have that fly in, flag comes down, Earth moves, flag comes down again, Earth moves, give it an animation. We talk about Australia. How cool is that? It's a very quick animation. Now, as you can see, it does take up quite a few slides just to do one animation. So be aware, it will, I'm looking at my different monitor where I've got a full animation set out, and realistically, the presentation itself is probably made out of about 8 slides, but because of all the animations, it's increased up to 34. So this is where the sections can play a massive thing, just to keep all of your animations together. So one slide is more important, but you've got all the animations, so keep it all together. Now, let's say we're going to record this and present it instead of presenting it live. How would you do that? Well, what I would recommend doing is, first of all, make sure you've got all of your notes. Make sure that you're in a quiet environment, there's no cars going past. Make sure your phone's turned off so there's no interruptions in your recording, and things like that. Think about everything going on around you. You want to present it in a nice, clear area. And let's say we're going to start on this page. Now you can add things in, so when the PowerPoint starts, it automatically presents for you and it will deliver your recording straight away. So what we'll do here is we'll press record, and from here you've got different things you can do. If we go from beginning, we'll open up this slide here, and this is what the presenter view looks like generally. But as you can see, we've got a few options here for recording. So you can see I've got my notes here. Let me swap to a different slide. So we'll press the button where the arrow is. We've got my notes here. So what do you need to be aware of when you're recording? Well, first of all, at the top you have your timestamp. So this is how much has been recorded. You have your big red record button. You do have a camera, so if you're using a webcam, which I would recommend doing, I don't have one on this computer, but I do have a virtual webcam, so you can see what it would look like in the bottom right there. So as I talk, I would be in that corner when it's presenting. I also have my microphone, so I can turn that on or off. I can enable auto scroll, so that will, automatically scroll as I finish. And then from here, I've got my device settings. So I'm using a microphone HyperX Quadcast, so make sure you set that. But I also have options to different ones as well. So you've got to make sure you select the right microphone, select the right webcam. And you've also got additional things here. So we'll get into Cameo in a moment. Don't worry about that now. But essentially, if you were recording something, you need to worry about is just clear the recordings. You have 2 options, either to clear the entire PowerPoint, which I wouldn't recommend doing, or clearing the slide and recording. There's no way to edit these once you've recorded them. So it's kind of a one-take wonder. So you'll probably just press clear current slide. Exporting we'll get into in a minute. But you've also got some additional options like blurring your background, so in the bottom right, blur the background, otherwise you'll see everything behind you. Also the presenter view, so you can change how this looks as well. However, I would leave that. So let's say we're going to record. Hopefully I don't butcher this. What I'm going to do is simply hit the record, give myself maybe 2 or 3 seconds just to breathe in, relax, and record something. Remember, you have all the time in the world to do these. Don't rush them. Don't panic. Just take your time. If you need a breather, take a breather. Just remember to talk how you normally would. So I'm going to press this record and we'll go into this now. So as you can see, it gives me a countdown. Scotland-born photographer Liam Wong spent time travelling as an art director for a video game company. To document his trips and show his family what he's been up to, he began taking photos on his smartphone. If I finish that now, I'll hit the red square, that will cancel that recording, and that will just load that up underneath. So I can press this back a listen to how it sounds. Scotland-born photographer Liam Wong spent time travelling as an art director for a video game company. And as you can see, that just did that very easily. This will save automatically onto the slide, so if I close this now, let me go back to my other display. This will, because I have my webcam, it will link to the webcam button. So it will just play from here. So if I press this, Scotland-born photographer Liam Wong, and you can see it just plays. And if I want this to be controlled as someone presses onto the slide, I can go to the playback, and as you can see, automatically it's set to play automatically. So whenever someone selects on the slide, it will play back straight away. And essentially, you just do this for the rest of your slides. Press in, play them, and go from there. So that's very cool. One thing to note, which is different, if you're presenting live but digitally, so what I mean by this is you're presenting the PowerPoint but you're delivering it over Teams, what you can do instead is add a Cameo on. Cameo works identical to the record, but it's presenting live, so what we'll do is we'll add Cameo here. It will give you this little box, and from here when you present, I need to explain some of the foreground first. If you save your PowerPoint to OneDrive, which is the storage platform that we use, what you'll be able to do is when you come to share on Teams, you'll be able to use a drop down to share a PowerPoint live. So if you have links in your PowerPoint, if you have basically anything like that, people can press into the PowerPoint instead of you having to share the link. And for things like Cameo, what you can do is this is like a live embed. So instead of having your camera place through Teams, it places through Teams through PowerPoint. So wherever I place my little Cameo, my face will pop up as long as I'm sharing that through PowerPoint Live. So I can deliver that PowerPoint Live to people then as well. So all I've done there is just press Cameo, that appears there. If I was then to launch into Teams, then share my PowerPoint, it goes from there as well. So very cool things. So we've created this PowerPoint. I'm getting one step ahead of myself. We've created this PowerPoint. I'm happy with the recording. How do I save this? Well, first of all, think about what your submission is. Okay, if you're delivering a PowerPoint physically, you're delivering it live, you won't want to record a video and then submit that because essentially you're delivering it anyway. So let's say we're in that scenario, we're just presenting this PowerPoint. What do we want to do? We want to save this. We've got to submit the PowerPoint anyway, or we're going to save the PowerPoint. First things first, go top left into your file, press save as, and from here you get different options for where you want to save this. I use a method which says I keep one hard copy, which means I save one copy to my PC and one cloud copy, so I save it to the cloud. I'm going to press browse first and move into an area where I keep my folders. For me, I keep them temporary in documents before I go and categorize them off, so we give it a name. You want to make sure your file save type is PowerPoint presentation, so .pptx, hit save, that's saved from there. If I want to save that to the cloud, I can go into my cloud storage and I can drag and drop that file in. You could also see if I went back to save as, then I also have my cloud storage appear there. So this is the PowerPoint, not version, but the PowerPoint link. So I can come in, this is exactly the structure I have on OneDrive, and I'm going to save that file in there straight away as well. The thing about saving to OneDrive, and it's very important, is not only does it update, it also saves automatically. You can also add collaborators, so if I shared my PowerPoint to a colleague or to a friend, they can also work on the PowerPoint at the same time as me, so it can be a very powerful thing. So that's how I would save normally. If I've recorded something, so we're not talking about Cameo, we're just talking about if I've recorded something. Cameo I would just save to the OneDrive area. If I'm recording the PowerPoint, what do I need to do? If I sent this off now, it would present as a PowerPoint. So the person would press on, they would have to manually press through the slides. But maybe I've designed this in a way like it would be a YouTube video, so instead of them having to press through everything, I just want it to play automatically on its own. It finishes, it starts, it finishes. No one needs to do anything other than launch the file, which is very cool, right? The only difference is we do the exact same thing again. We will go File, we'll go Save As, but instead, when you press Browse, or if you go through this file here, when you're selecting the save type, you want to find the PowerPoint show, which just means it plays automatically. Make sure it's the PowerPoint show.ppsx. It is the new and updated PowerPoint one. If you use, say, the 1997 to 2003, It is outdated, which means there can be a panic there because it might not load on the current system. So make sure you're using the PowerPoint show. And as you can see, it updates the file name, save that, and that will play automatically if you've set the timings for the recording and every slide has a narration slide on it. So that's how you record. Now we've covered a lot. This video is very long, so feel free to skip through, but those are the basics to PowerPoint to help you get started. There's plenty of other guides on our Digital Learning SharePoint. If you're a Staffordshire University member, you can go on and access those and can learn more. We're also looking for lots of feedback. We're trying to do more of these types of sessions, so if you've got any feedback, please let us know in the comments below and we'll take those into consideration for other sessions, but hopefully you found that useful. If you would like to know any more information, please drop a comment down below, but also feel free to get in touch with us at tile@staffs.ac.uk, and we'll sit down and help you with that as well. But for a basis, this is a good starting point, and I hope you find PowerPoint a little less daunting, as it can be quite full on when you start.